Talk about Israel's place in all of this right now.
What is their role, or what is the bigger picture? I can do no better than to quote the Prime Minister himself when Bibi Netanyahu addressed Congress, I think, 2 years ago. He said, if you want to understand ISIS, if you want to understand the maelstrom that is the Middle East, because it's not just about Iraq or Syria, he said, you must understand that all of this is simply a Game of Thrones for the crown of the caliphate. That's probably the best one-sentence summary I've heard of the last 2.5 years of catastrophe. Why? Because we have two competing visions of the caliphate. On the one hand, we have the Sunni extremists, Al-Qaeda and ISIS, who want to have a Sunni-controlled caliphate and have actually established one in Syria and Iraq. On the other hand, what do we have? It's not just one pole. The other pole is Iran. We have the Shia side of this. They also have been exporting their fundamental version of Islam since 1979, and they wish to have their own caliphate, albeit under the control of the mullahs. So what we have right now is a competing vision of two different versions of Islam vying for control of the Middle East, and both of them with utter hatred for Israel.
The Sunni wing, led by ISIS today in many ways, and the Shia wing, represented by Iran, Hezbollah.
Right.
Approaches to defeating these two existential enemies.
Okay, so in defeating jihad, I lay out a very simple three-part plan for defeating what I like to call the global jihadi movement, whether it's Shia or whether it's Sunni. Let's start with the basics. Number one, you have to eradicate politics from the threat assessment. No more politics, no more political correctness. The idea that the enemy says I'm a jihadi and I'm doing this for Allah, you don't get to wipe that out. You don't get to say, I'm uncomfortable with that concept, therefore I'm going to censor the transcript of the Orlando killer. No, get politics out of the threat assessment, just the facts, and specifically, be honest, like the president was, President Reagan. What did he say about the Soviets? He said, this is an evil empire. Well, if this isn't evil incarnate, killing children, beheading people, crucifying them, if that's not evil, then nothing's evil. So be honest about who we're facing and who they say they are. Second, if we look at ISIS specifically and Al-Qaeda, we have to understand we can't be the face of this war. So white-skinned or brown-skinned Christians or atheists or whatever can't be the face of this war. It has to be who? It has to be our Muslim allies. If we want to defeat ISIS, we want to have the Egyptians, the Jordanians, the Emiratis, and the Kurds as well come together to defeat and close with ISIS, because that will be the only credible victory. But as you know, working in the Middle East, I've worked in the Middle East for years, never going to happen unless those people believe we are on their side and we support them 100%. And unfortunately, we've shown them something in the last 7.5 years. We've shown them not to trust us. In Iraq, in Syria, and so forth. So the next commander-in-chief has to win back our Sunni allies in the region. And the last part of my book, and this goes to Iran as well, which is a slightly different enemy threat group. There is a connective tissue between Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the head of ISIS, and Adolf Hitler. There's a connective tissue between Al-Qaeda and Stalin. And what's that connective tissue? They're all totalitarians. Either you agree with them, or they will kill you or enslave you. So we have to ask the question, how do you best defeat totalitarianism? Well, how did we do it with the Soviet Union? We didn't blow up Moscow. What did we do? We delegitimized their message. We bankrupted their ideology. When President Reagan says, tear down this wall, he's destroying the legitimacy of the Marxist message. We have to do the same thing with jihad, whether it's Shia jihad or Sunni jihad. We have to use counter-propaganda tools to delegitimize the message, just as we did during the Cold War, and again, not with us standing up there and saying it, but by helping our allies in the region, whether it's the members of the Green Revolution in Tehran or whether it's the moderate Muslims of the region. We have to help them destroy the message of jihad.